Good evening, everyone. There we go. Hey, I was going to immediately make fun of Mike Arnold because he and I have known each other so long. We've been at the same barber for a long time together, right? And so just the fact that he's a diehard Cleveland Browns fan, right? We know this about Mike. We forgive him for that. All that means, everybody, is that he dies hard every year. He's used to it, at this point. But Christ Church, it's so good to be with all of you. My wife, Erica, is with me tonight. Love the fact that she's here because, So about 25 years ago, right on this very platform right here, Erica and I got married. And so by Don Wilson, it was incredible to have that. So it's great to be back. Every time that I have the opportunity to come back to be with all of you, it is a real gift to me because it reminds me of those early years of student ministry when I had hair, when I was not gray. And so, it's good to be with all of you tonight. So I want to begin tonight by telling you a story about my bride because this is where we got married. And so while we were dating, Erica and I, we met at Geneva College together. We both grew up in the Pittsburgh area, met at Geneva, and after the summer after our freshman year of college, I went on staff with a great organization called Camp of the Woods. Some of you may be familiar with this because Pastor John Guest has preached up at Camp of the Woods before. So I went on teen staff up there. It's in a beautiful place called Speculator, New York. It's on this beautiful lake. Watch this, Lake Pleasant. Doesn't that sound amazing? Right? Sounds amazing. The camp is built right into Lake Pleasant. In fact, out on the island, a part of my job on the weekends was I was to take all of the campers out to the island and back from the island with all their luggage, this kind of thing. So I was kind of a boat boy on the weekends, teen staff during the week. And so Erica and I were dating. We were madly in love at this time, and she could not be without me an entire summer. So she came, watch this is crazy. Her parents allowed her to take a Greyhound bus to come and see me. That's a 9-hour plus drive. Thank that she came with a friend. She was dating another one of my buddies who was also up there, and so it was a great time. But here's the thing. How many of you remember college? Man, I was broke. I had no money at all. Literally every piece of money that I was making was going to pay for books for next semester. So I'm thinking, what do I do? Erica's making this trip to come up to Speculator, New York, Lake Pleasant. What do I do? So I had this idea. I have the keys to the boathouse. So I'm going to unlock one of the canoes, right? And we're going to have a nice little, canoe ride out onto the lake. And so Erica arrives. I try to be as romantic as possible, life vests on, safety first, everybody, right? And so we push out onto Lake Pleasant. It was awesome. I haven't seen her for a long time. And so we begin to flirt. We begin to catch up. How are you? And all that. And then we decided, okay, little splash with the paddles, right? She splashed me first, so I took it up a notch because I'm competitive. So I splash her back. Okay, splash, let's go. She splashes me, well, I splash her. This is just playful and all this. I didn't realize that there was a boat coming by. Have you ever been in a canoe when a boat comes by, it is doing this, right? So I'm super competitive, not paying attention to the fact that there's a boat coming by. I go to splash on Lake Pleasant, and our canoe flips upside down. She's in the water, I'm in the water, and all of a sudden, the wonderful date that we were on as poor college kids turns into a nightmare on Lake Pleasant. So I'm in trouble. I unlocked the canoe. This is like going to come out of my paycheck. And so, Erica, you got to swim back with the oars in your hands, and I've got to get this. You remember it's like maybe some of you are in Boy Scouts. They said, just get under the canoe and lift up like that. Doesn't work. It just doesn't work, anybody. Okay, so I had to push the canoe. Swim, push. Swim, push 300 yards offshore. So by the time that I got to shore, I am exhausted. Swim, push. And I finally, and there's people crowded around now. Everybody knows that this is happening. And so they come and get the canoe. They flip it around and all that. They get the canoe. And as I come up out of the mucky water, on my legs and on my belly was a bunch of leeches. Lake Pleasant. Right? What was supposed to be an incredible date on Lake Pleasant got flipped upside down, and all of a sudden I got blood-sucking leeches all over me, and I'm embarrassed in front of Erica, and this Lake Pleasant wonderful date turned into a nightmare. It was awful. So I tell you this story because I want to read this passage of Scripture to you today, following an incredible day that the disciples just had with Jesus. He had wonderful teaching. He's teaching the crowds. Everything's going great for them until the disciples, they hit some serious adversity on the middle of a lake. Look at what it says in Mark 4. Jesus said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as Jesus was. And other boats were with him, and a great windstorm arose. And the waves were breaking into the boat so that the boat was already filling, but he was in the stern, Jesus, asleep on the cushion. And so they woke him up and they said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we're perishing?" And he awoke and he rebuked the wind and he said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased. And there was a great calm. And Jesus said to them, "Why are you guys so afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great fear. And they said to one another, "Who is this guy that even the wind and the sea obey him?" As we read this tonight, I wonder if there might be anybody here who has ever asked the question, or who are maybe asking the question right now of God, do you not care? Do you see me down here? Do you see what's going on in my boat? In the relationships, God, this relationship is taking on water. Do you not care about me? The diagnosis that just hit our family, do you not care? I mean, God, I'm financially getting upside down here. Do you not see me down here? Do you not care? My guess is that we've all at one point or another have asked that kind of question of God. And so tonight I want to wade through this passage and to learn some things about Jesus, and then to, in response, what it is that we should do because of what it is that we learn about Jesus. So if you want to take notes with me tonight, going to be coming up on the screens. The first thing I see about Jesus is this: Jesus reveals more of who he is in the middle of the storm. Isn't it true that it's in the middle of adversity when we actually recognize God for who he really is? Because in our comfort, sometimes we're blinded by it. And we don't really see him for who he is. But here's the thing, he's the same all along. The same yesterday, today, and forever. It's just that our eyes didn't realize it, and they were opened to our need for him in that moment. So Jesus here in this, he's not surprised. He's not rattled by this storm, so much so he's asleep on a cushion. Why? Because when you know what's coming and you're prepared for it, you don't need to be overwhelmed by it. Now, one of the cool things about my job as chaplain to the Pittsburgh Steelers, it is a gift that I get to sit in the team meetings. Like, it's a real honor to be invited into those spaces. And so under the leadership of head coach Mike Tomlin, he invites me in there, and the first few minutes of that team meeting are incredible. Like, I wish you all could just kind of be in there like a fly on the wall, because if guys are paying attention in those first few minutes, Mike Tomlin puts on a master's class of leadership. It's amazing. I have 5 years worth of material, things that I've learned from Mike Tomlin in those few minutes of leadership as he starts out. And one time, while he was talking about some of the challenges that they as a team were facing, some of the adversity that they were facing, Mike Tomlin said this, and I quote, "Pressure is constant. You're either applying it or you're feeling it." So how does that apply to our passage tonight? Here's the thing. sometimes you and I, we create the storms in our own lives, don't we? The bad decision, we didn't think it all the way through. You know, there's things that, we then, because we make a bad decision and we get ourselves into some upside down situations, you and I have the audacity to go, God, why did you do this? And God's like, time out, pull out the red challenge flag right there. That was you. I had nothing to do with that. But we do this, right? But then there's times in life where life just happens to us. The boat flips upside down when we're in the middle of having fun, storms, adversity, challenge. It's just a part of this broken world. And friends, I don't know how it happened in the American church, but there is some form of false teaching in Christian circles today that, watch this, when you follow Jesus, that everything is supposed to then be up and to the right. So that when you give your life to Jesus, you get the bigger house, you get the bigger car, the better grades, and that prosperity gospel, friends, it's a false gospel, right? But it always, this up and to the right, mentality, theology, they obviously didn't read this passage. They didn't cover this, right? For those who are in the prosperity gospel world. Why? Because these disciples are completely rattled by this storm that they think they're going to die. That doesn't sound too prosperous to me. And Jesus knew this. And he wasn't rattled by the storm. So what does Jesus do? Jesus wakes up from his power nap and he flexes his supernatural power. I love it. I love it. He's flexing his omnipotence here. This is a theological term meaning that God is all powerful. And so here these disciples, in the middle of the storm, they get to experience Jesus, who he really is, and a part of Jesus and his nature that they've never experienced before for themselves. So check this out. They see Jesus flex his power, but here's the thing. That's been Jesus all along. That's his MO. And it was this awful circumstance that opened their eyes to get an understanding of a deeper part of who Jesus really is. And the same is true for you and me when we go through the storms of life. The second thing that I see in here about Jesus, if you're taking notes with me, is this. Jesus speaks peace into the storm. Did you see it? With one word from Jesus, the chaos died. It was beautiful, and the lake was still. The supernatural power of Jesus, what he has is astounding. With one word, the storm obeyed. And the disciples, they were filled, it says, with even greater fear than before, saying, "Who is this guy?" Now, at this point, contextually, it's always important to read the scriptures within context, right? These guys have been following Jesus probably for about a year and a half now. They've been following him, seeing his teachings, right? Seeing the miracles that he's performed. So is it possible, everybody, that it took this storm in their lives for them to experience the power of Jesus for themselves? See, they needed to experience the Prince of Peace on a whole new level, and they got to because of this storm. See, the Prince of Peace, he had his head on a pillow, and he was at peace because he is peace. See, when you're at peace in the middle of a storm, you can't help but bring peace into the storm. Jesus is peace. He speaks peace. He brings peace wherever he is invited to go. And so as you and I, we attach ourselves to the person of Jesus Christ, what does he do? He gives us himself. He gives us peace. He speaks peace to our adversity, to our chaos, to our storms, to our financial situations, to our relational brokenness in this world, and to our family dysfunction. He speaks peace when he's invited to go there. But I need you to see something here. This is so important. I need you to see this. He doesn't take them out of the water. Did you ever notice that? Right? He doesn't take them out of the boat like he could have. He could have lifted that boat right to the shore. He's Jesus. He already flexed his power. But he keeps them in the middle of the lake, I believe, for a reason. So what does this teach you and me? So how should we respond to these two things that we learned about Jesus? If you're taking notes with me, number one, I believe that we can trust Jesus to calm our storms. See, remember, Jesus has the power to calm our storms with one word. With the adversity that we all face in this life, most of us, if we're honest, in those situations when the adversity is hitting us in the mouth, we only trust ourselves. Have you ever met somebody like this? We trust our past experiences. This is how we did it last time. We don't really ask for help. Have you met somebody who said, I'll fix it. I got this. I'm gonna try harder. I'll be fine. I don't need your help. Anybody? You know somebody's coming to your mind right now? See, I think we can learn something from Jesus' disciples here on how it is that they responded. Now listen, these are experienced fishermen. They know storms. They know boats. But you know what else they know in this particular storm? They are in way over their heads. And sometimes, y'all, we face things in this life that we just don't have a category for. You've been there, you've done that. If you haven't, you're going to experience it someday. See, and there's no playbook, there's no self-help book, there's no YouTube video, there's no Google search that will be able to help you out of that uncategorical kind of storm. Only Jesus has the power to be able to calm those kinds of uncategorical storms. When you face the adversity that you don't have a category for in this life, everybody, you will not be able to rely on your past experiences and your learned behavior. We must learn as a church, as followers of Jesus, to rely on His strength, on His power when life is knocking us upside down. Only Jesus can calm those kind of storms. Secondly, what I think we can do, if you're taking notes with me, is we can trust Jesus to deliver us through our storms. Now notice, I didn't say from. I said through our storms. See, most, if not all of us in this room, we just want out of the adversity. Am I right? God, just get me out of this. Like I promise, like I'll even make you promises if you get me out of this adversity. I'll do things for you if you get me out of this, right? That's how we roll. But friends, that's not how always God rolls. Why? Because He's good. And there's some things that He wants you and me to learn about Himself and about ourselves in the middle of adversity. So watch this. Even when Jesus speaks peace and He calms the storm, they're still in the middle of the lake. He did not remove them from the water. He never promised them that another storm wasn't going to come their way. It's not in there. You won't read that in the Scriptures. But what did He do? He gave them peace in the middle of the lake, in the middle of the waters. But they still needed to row their boat. Right? See, many of us, we just want God to remove the situation so that we can move through life with peace. But sometimes, and I believe this is a really important line. When I wrote this line, it was like one of those moments. Have you ever had one of those moments where like God jumped at you? I believe this next line is for somebody to listen to, because sometimes God will not take you out of it because He wants to put something in you. He wants to teach you something. And the reason that He's allowing it is because He loves you and He's trying to pull something out of you that is laying dormant, that you're allowing to be squashed, circumstances in your past that you're thinking that you're under control. And He's going, you're not going to keep it under the water. It's like that balloon that you try to keep pushing under the water and it like keeps coming up and you're working hard to like keep it down any way possible. And God's going, I'm bringing it up to the surface because I love you. And I want something good for you, so pay attention. I'm trying to put it inside you. I'm not going to take you out of it until this gets into you. God's promise is not to remove the storms of life, but He promises to be with us through the storms. And Jesus got His disciples through one of the worst experiences that they ever experienced as fishermen. And the same thing can be true for our lives when we do this next thing that I believe we see the disciples do. The third thing, if you're taking notes with me, is that we must come to Jesus to experience peace. We must come to Jesus to experience peace. When the disciples realized that they were in over their heads, what did they do? They came to Jesus. I picture that they were waking him up. Jesus, come on. Do you not care about us? We're dying here. They came to Jesus, and when they did, they had a jaw-dropping experience with the Prince of Peace. Because they came to Him. And the same thing can be true for you and me. When you come to Jesus, especially in your storms of life, in your adversity, you will experience peace. How can I be sure of that? Because Jesus is the Prince of Peace. And He brings Himself to you. As you draw near to Him, He draws near to you, and He brings His peace. See, for so long, some of you in this room, you've been trying to fix it on your own. Your own problems, I'm going to fix it my way. You're not asking for any help. You're not coming to Jesus. And if you're honest, when you lay your head on the pillow at night, you don't have any peace. Because your mind begins to race of all the things that are causing you anxiousness and the things that, and you feel it in your chest. Because you keep wanting to do it your way. And He's saying, just come to me. All of you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest for your souls. You know, as the saying goes, no Jesus, no peace. No Jesus, no peace. Some of you know what that feels like, to have no peace. See, what I love about Jesus is that He is the master teacher. He's incredible at leveraging these kind of moments and getting the most out of them. Taking a horrible circumstance and now saying, this is a teachable moment. And so Jesus uses the adversity of this storm as a teachable moment for His disciples to not only show them who He is and His power as He flexed there and the kind of peace that they can experience in this broken world, but He also wants to teach them about the broken world. At another spot in the Gospel of John, Jesus is recorded as saying this, John 16:33, I have said these things to you that in me you may have peace. But in this world, you're going to have all kinds of tribulation, all kinds of trouble. But take heart. Why? Because I have overcome the world. Jesus is making a massive claim here to say that He is the only one in this world, in the history of this world, who has ever overcome the brokenness of this world. He's overcome sin on our behalf. He's overcome death so that we could have eternal life. Jesus, in His power, has overcome, and it's in Him that we can have peace in the middle of our storms. And it's in Him, and it's with Him that we too can overcome the adversity that we will face in this life. Why? Because Jesus has already overcome anything that you and I could face in this life. Now, as a pastor and as a chaplain to the Steelers, it's part of my role. It's part of Mike's role, Robbie's role. It's a part, just the pastor's role. We hear an awful lot about the adversity in your life, the challenges, the storms, the things that are punching you in the mouth. And you know what? We love it. We love coming alongside of you and hearing that and cheering you on and saying, we're with you. And so I hear a lot and my guess is that in a room this size tonight, that there's probably somebody who came in here who's feeling really defeated. Like, this room's too big. There's too many people in here that there's not one person that has come in here saying, man, I'm getting beat up pretty bad. My boat is taking on a lot of water. And in a moment of vulnerability here, I just want to say to you, I get you 100%. And so some of you who have heard my story a little bit, you know that in November 2020, my brother suddenly died from COVID. 10 days from the point that he got COVID to the point that he died. It was awful. It was the worst thing that I've ever experienced in my life. And man, it was so bad. But to add to it, I mean, that was awful. But then a week later, the NFL, because of all the COVID protocols and everything, I was told that I was no longer welcome in the Steelers facility because of, the tiering system that the NFL had. It wasn't that they didn't like me. It was just, hey, we're not letting groups of people in here. And so my brother died. A week later, I'm told that I don't have a job for the rest of the season. And so, y'all, I think for the first time was battling a depression that I didn't have a category for. The grief and the pain was just absolutely awful. You ask my wife, like, I started to scare her. I started to scare myself with the thoughts that were coming to my mind, and I knew that they weren't me. So I was getting really scared. And so when I say that there's somebody coming in here that you're battling stuff like that, I get you, and I understand you. And it is only by the grace of God that a broken man can stand up before you right now. Like, I am still broken, but by God's grace, He's pushing me through. He's getting me through it. And I believe that when Pastor Craig said, hey, this is going to happen, 5 pastors from the city, and we want you to preach these, I knew exactly what I wanted to come and share with you tonight. I am broken, but I am yet confident in Jesus, not myself. Because I believe that I'm here to tell somebody today that you're going to get through it. How do I know this? I'm going to tell you. See, I believe that maybe for somebody here today, it's going to get worse tomorrow before it gets better. But you're going to make it. How can I be sure of this? Because I know God. And I know that God is for you. And He sees you. He sees your situation, and He loves you, and He wants the best for you. And I know His promises. His promises for you is this: no weapon is formed against you. It's not going to prosper. And I know who's in your boat, right? Look around right now. A wonderful church family who's rowing with you, who will do anything for you, like they did for Erica and me when we were on staff here. And I know that Jesus is in your boat, and He is not surprised by what it is that you brought into this place tonight. He's not fazed by your circumstances. I know that when you come to Him, you will experience peace. That when you come to the people around you and you're vulnerable with them and say, this is the storm that I'm going through right now, peace will come because God works through His people. How do I know this? How can I be certain of this? Because God did it for me. But not just because He did it for me. Don't take my word for it. Let's take God's word for it. I believe, now everybody, I need you to do something with me. I need you to lean in with me right now. Because I believe that the last minute of this sermon is about to be so encouraging for somebody tonight. Now, in our Bibles, the way that we read today, it is really dangerous. Let me explain. We have these Bible reading plans, and I'm not against Bible reading plans, but what happens is we get to the end of chapter 4, what it is that we just studied, and we get to a point where the disciples are freaking out. Who is this guy? Right? And they're in the middle of the lake, and then our Bible reading plan stops because it's the end of the chapter. You know that that's not how the Bible was written, right? Right? We need to understand that the verses and the chapters, they were put in later. It was never meant to be read like that. And so when you and I stop reading at the end of Mark 4, we're like, what happened to them? Are they still in the middle of the lake? What's going on with did Jesus yell at them more? What's going on? If we don't read the end, like if we don't keep reading. So this next verse is for somebody today. Because I believe if you've come in here and you're feeling the weight of whatever it is that is punching you in your mouth, this verse is for you. And you were never meant to stop reading at Mark 4. Here it is. This is why Pastor Craig invited me. This is why we're doing this tonight, is so that you can hear this verse. Historical eyewitness account that Mark is writing to the people so that we could all hear it tonight. Please hear this. They came to the other side. Like, if you stop at 4, you don't see that until the next day, right? We need to see this. The same is going to be true. Because why? Because Jesus is in your boat. And you're rowing with him, and the church who's beside you right now, they came to the other side. I need you to say it with me. They came to the other side. Say it with me. Come on. They came to the other side. One more time, loud, like you believe it. They came to the other side. And somebody, you needed that verse tonight. The encouragement from Jesus himself and the written word of God that never will fade. That's for you tonight. And that's the reason I came here. I love you. Christ Church, thank you for having me. Let me pray. God, I know that there's somebody in this place tonight, probably several of us, tens, maybe 100 of us, who we needed to hear Mark 5:1. They came to the other side. And God, my prayer for somebody who's in this room is that they would latch onto that verse because it is rooted in Jesus. Jesus, you will bring peace into the chaos. Jesus, when they come to you, you will draw near to them. God, you will speak to their circumstances and you will bring peace. It doesn't say that you're going to take them out of it, but God, your presence is so strong that when we walk with you through the storms of life, there's nothing that can hold us back. God, we love you. Thank you for this encouraging word from Mark 5:1 tonight. I thank you for your word that is everlasting. May we continue to lean into it and take your word for it, not a preacher's. We love you. Amen.